Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Crazy day in the market today, guys. So I thought I'd do a video. Let's look at what's going on. And most importantly, did Bitcoin top? And if so, how low will Bitcoin go? And we'll look at some of these other currencies that we're looking at here. We'll do a lot of charts and talk some news. There's been a lot of news. So I sent a newsletter out on Monday and I said, there will be news. And boy, did we get some news this week. So it's been pretty volatile. Let's go ahead and take a look at the markets. BTC coming in at 24.11, so $2,400 still. Ethereum $184, Dash 126, Litecoin 29.55, Monero 41, Ripple 28 cents, Ethereum Classic at 16, Pivx, gosh, Pivx $1.25. We'll get into Pivx in a minute. Zcash 231. Factum $13, NEM at 22 cents, and Stellar Lumens 4.7 cents, let's call it. So let's take a quick look at the coin market cap. $81 billion. So I know it's getting scary, I know things are getting volatile, but got to remember, we're at $81 billion. We were talking $30 billion just a month or two ago. So guys, this is powerful move up. How high will it go? Well, remember I did that video, $100 billion is a little conservative, I said. So I still think we'll see 100 billion this year. What do you guys think? Let me know. Put a comment on there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a little contest of it. We'll get to that in a minute. So looking at the list, kind of rounding up the top of the list here. Bitcoin 39 billion, Ethereum 16 billion, Ripple at 10 billion. And then there's the drop down to 2 billion for NEM. Ethereum Classic 1.5 billion, Litecoin 1.5 billion, Dash was in the billion club for a little bit, came back a little bit. So Monero shot up this week. Lumens trying to hold that spot at number 10. Little bouncy here. So let's get to it. So first thing I want to talk about is the news. So consensus was this week, and a lot of stuff came out. There was some big movement in Zcash earlier due to JP Morgan stepping in and working with them on that. Zcash popped, was up like 200% in a number of hours. A big piece of news was Bitcoin, SegWit, and scaling talk and all of that. And it was just nice to see some consensus, if you will, some agreements. Obviously things still got to happen, but moving in the right direction there. What do I think that'll do to the markets? Well, for one, I think it's going to make Bitcoin more attractive in the long run. And Bitcoin, just as we all know, has some issues with timing and scaling, and nobody really seems to know what the right way to go, or they know, but nobody wants to agree to what the right way to go is. So it's kind of nice to see that. Will that impact Litecoin and some of these other ones? We'll see. Near term, I don't think it will, but once it starts going active and it looks like it changes things a little bit, we'll see. I don't think that's going to kill Litecoin per se. I think there's room for multiple currencies and multiple platforms, and they're all going to have a different purpose. So, but that's all around good news for Bitcoin. So let's look at the charts. So here's Bitcoin. Now, I zoomed out to show the daily going back to basically October timeframe, and look at the run we've had since October. So we were at $600 last fall. We had the big run up to just under, a little over $1,100, which was one of the previous highs, and then a pretty sharp correction down, which only lasted about a week and a half or so, and then right back up, broke those highs, another correction, and this was the bottom for the move we're seeing now in this $900 range. Since then, it's been off to the races. We had this little tiny consolidation, but that's really it. Bitcoin hasn't had much of a rest since 900. So what does this mean? Is this the top? Was this roughly $2,800 mark it? Well, for one, this high volume reversal selling day is definitely not bullish. That's generally some toppy action when you see big volume selling at the top. So that's not a good sign. Now that doesn't mean it's the top, but it's kind of flashing some warning signs that Bitcoin is due for a pause here. Now, is it going to come crashing straight down? Tomorrow and the coming days, we're going to say a lot because if we overcome this high and close above it, then that pretty much negates this whole worry here. But right now, we haven't gone above it, and there's some worry about there. Some of the sentiment is kind of concerning too, right? So and this happens when Bitcoin gets really, really hot and moving fast. But now I'm seeing articles on Fox News and I'm seeing articles on CNBC and Wall Street Journal and Forbes and all these popular magazines. And they're talking about how now Bitcoin is going to go to 5,000 and 10,000. And I saw one today that said, could Bitcoin go to 1 million? And okay, guys, like, could it? Are we going to see 10,000 Bitcoin? Yeah, maybe, probably, right? But are we going to see it this time, this move? No. Come on, let's be real. Um, it's going to pull back. It's going to go up. It's going to pull back. It could take years. I mean, that's just the enthusiasm we're seeing right now. A lot of froth, a lot of sentiment, little too much excitement. And I know this sounds weird because I'm in this space and I'm definitely invested with you guys, but I like it when they pull back. I like to see this corrective action. And here's why. When it just goes straight up without any correction, that scares me because there's no support levels being built. There's no new bases or floors put in to support on the way back. And when it just goes straight up like that and it goes parabolic, what inevitably happens is it has a very sharp, steep pullback all the way down. And that typically turns into a very long bear corrective phase. But when it has these little pullbacks or when it sits around for a couple of weeks and then it wants to go back up, that's nice because then it puts in a good floor. And if it does pull back, that floor serves as support now and it typically holds. So I like to see that. I don't like to see this straight up movement. Now it's exciting if you're on the ride, don't get me wrong. But for the longer term, it's just a little easier and more um, easier to focus on when to get in and there's just more clarity around what some of the key support levels are. So anyway, let's get to it. So let's look at this chart here. Let's do some analysis. So you got to zoom out and look at the dailies when you're looking for a pullback, right? So the hourly charts, they're not going to really tell us much. You don't want that kind of granularity. These are nice for when you're looking at a base and you're trying to do some precision execution on when to get in. But when you're looking at a pullback, you want to see further, right? So if we look at the 2 hour, I mean, it's sliced right through the short-term moving average. It's slicing right through this one right now. One thing to note is this little bit of a tail. There was some support buying there. If we zoom out a little bit, there's the 4 hour. So let's look at the daily. And so first thing to do is let's just look at some basic kind of Fibonacci retracement. Let's say starting from this bottom point here. So if we look at that point there, and let's find that here. We'll say starting from that, if we go up to where we peaked today, you can see it could very quickly pull back to, typically this 50 and then this key ratio, which is a 61.8. And so if we saw that, I mean, how far back is that going to take us to? So if we go down to, let's say the 50, that's going to take us to just over $1,800 Bitcoin. And if we end up pulling back to the key ratio here at 61.8, you're looking at $1,600 Bitcoin. Now, the nice thing about this $1,800 range is this also coincides with this little consolidation. So that should serve as the first level of support should Bitcoin really start to correct here. So I would like to see Bitcoin bounce and hold around this area. So $1,800 also will coincide with this moving average right here. And so it would not be surprising to see Bitcoin come back and at least test this moving average, which currently is right around 2,100. But that's, I mean, 2,100, that was like 3 days ago, right? That's nothing. So 1,800 would not surprise me. If it goes further, somewhere in this area, which is also the low of this consolidation, which would be, $1,600. So $1,600 Bitcoin. Would that scare you guys out? Worst case, right, we go all the way back down to this level, $1,300 Bitcoin. That would certainly scare some people there. I'm not predicting that, but just saying we could bounce around in this area and Bitcoin would be just fine, and then set up a base to go higher. So that's one way to look at it, right? Another way is, what about some trend lines? So if we zoom out a little bit and look at some dailies, um, if you go the very long trend, which is probably not as applicable anymore. So if you kind of do one of these here and then you extend this one out to these lows here, I mean, you've got to go a long ways out before this trend line catches up. And so it would take until, oh, when is that? October before we hit that trend line. Um, Probably not going to happen unless Bitcoin just goes sideways and then lets the trend line catch up. More likely is some of this more steeper trend line look here. And so if we kind of zoom in a little bit here and let's take a look at the most recent trend line. And let's say from this bottom up along this channel here. So there's another trend line to look at. And so where would that take us? So if we came down to hit that trend line, you're looking at, maybe 1800 here, 1700 here. If it goes sideways, maybe down to 2000. So, these are some intermediate levels. So it kind of seems to keep pointing back to this general 17, $1,800. You could certainly see a momentary spike low. We see that very often with these. I mean, here's an example right here, right? They're just the panic selling and they bounce it right back up. So you tend to see those, especially at the lows of the bases. You'll see those spike lows, and temporarily it could go down below those key levels, but where would it would hold? Kind of looks like it's going to be around this 1800 if it tops here. If it goes down further, I would be really surprised to see Bitcoin at around $1,300. $1,300 to $1,500 would certainly be scary for a lot of people that have been buying on the way up. Would be a great opportunity to get in if you want more Bitcoin. So that's some potential areas to look at. I'm not predicting this is going to happen, guys. I'm just saying let's take it day by day. There's a little bit of panic out there right now. This big sell bar is a little scary. It was pretty volatile today. And like I said, unless we start going right back up here soon, then this may be a little bit of a top. Just keep an eye on it. One thing to note, however, is the altcoins were getting hit pretty hard today. And there may be, I guess we could call it a flight to safety. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of the money came out of the altcoins and started moving back into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin wouldn't maybe correct as hard as some of these other ones. So that's another way to do it too, is you can kind of get a little conservative and go with the slightly less volatile. It's kind of weird to say Bitcoin is slightly less volatile because these are all very volatile, but slightly less volatile than a Bitcoin or Ethereum. So those are kind of holding up and they're a little bit of a safe haven right now. Another thing to keep in mind too is that how big are the moves down typically? So let's look at this real quick. I mean, if you look at this last correction here in January, we went from around $1,100 and we went down to, oh, the bottom was right here. So you can say 32%. And so that was a pretty sharp move, but 32% is unfortunately not very unusual in crypto land. So let's look at another one here. If we did this move, this took it down 30%. And so there you go, there's another 30%. And so if we say 30% down from the top now is going to take you just over 1800, 35% is going to put you at 1775. So there you go, a 30% downer, we'd see the same zone again. So a couple ways to look at it. These are just using past precedent and kind of some of the patterns we see here in some of these coins. It just depends on when you got in too, right? I mean, if you were buying Bitcoin down here at 900 and down here, or if you bought on the breakouts kind of in this area here over 1200, you'd be okay, right? If you were buying up here at 2000 plus, I doubt very many of you were because this has only been the case for 3 or 4 days. But if you were, or if you bought up past 2,700, then yeah, you're probably getting a little nervous right now. For the rest of us, just kind of hold on. Let's look at Ethereum real quick. Ethereum still looking pretty strong. Let's zoom in a little bit. So these are kind of my annotations from some of these prior breakouts. And again, the same thing goes with Ethereum, guys. I mean, we called the first breakout here at 53, right? So if you see it go up to 200 and it drops all the way back to 150 and you bought it at 53, probably not that big of a deal for you. If you were buying it up past 200 and now you're nervous that it's going to drop, I can understand, but there was no viable action here other than it was just crazy strong and you just try to jump on the train. So that's the thing with these bases, why I love them so much. And I like when they just kind of correct and sit around, because these moves scare people. These big drops and they shake out people, and then they build up a nice base and a platform from which to launch. And those bases very often hold and they're solid. So this 95 breakout, that's probably going to hold. I mean, most likely we'll see Ethereum come back and retest some of these moving averages. That'll take you to about 150, 160 right now. If it tests the longer term, even then you're down to the low 100s. But again, Ethereum is super strong. There's a lot of activity, a lot of support behind it. If you look at this chart, it hasn't had quite the crazy move. Although going up $100 in a couple of days, that's pretty extreme. But Ethereum's looking good. Now, if we look at some of the other ones, they're a little more volatile here. So, Dash had the big breakout, big selling today, going back up. Look at where it held, though. Look at that moving average. So far it's holding pretty good. Let's look at Litecoin. Now, Litecoin's actually looking really strong here. Let me clear these old Fibonacci's. So, I mean, and look at this. So it had that sharp pullback. Remember I said it could probably go to the low 20s. It did very briefly, went back up, retested it again, and look at this moving averages looking like it wants to hold right now. And then now it's had this little bit of a breakout and moved up to about 35 this week. Saw some panic selling down to the 25 range today, but they were quick to buy it back up. If we zoom in a little bit on that, look at that. I know this red bar looks scary, but when you see it drop all the way down to 25 and it closes back up, that's support. That is buyers stepping in and saying this is a good place to pick it up. So that's not a bad sign right there. Now, it looks like it's pulling in a little bit here, but on the daily charts, Litecoin's looking pretty good. A break above 35, 37 range or so. This thing's gone. This thing's going to have new highs here. So keep an eye on Litecoin. NEM, this is NEM on the BTC, so sold off as well. Kind of tested that moving average, just like a lot of these. Now, volume on NEM on the downside wasn't that big, so that's a good sign there. Let's look at a couple more, and we got to wrap this one up. So Ripple, let's talk Ripple. I told you guys, Ripple and Stellar Lumens were going to move together, and they look like they have been. So if we look at Ripple, this is Ripple on the daily. And let me zoom out a little bit here. So clearly we had the big breakout, move up, little consolidation, and look at where they're holding it so far. They're holding it at the top of this last consolidation in the 18-20 cent range. So seems to be holding right now. This moving average is going to be an area of support. You don't want to see that break. If that breaks, there's not going to be a whole lot of support after that. So it'll just depend on what the chart does. It's still a little bit in a downtrend, so you're going to want to see this channel broke to the upside. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good sign for Ripple. If we go to Stellar Lumens, they're going to move similarly. So let's look at Stellar. Now, Stellar was setting up real nice, had this flag pattern, and looking like it was about to break out. And then the shakeout today with Ripple, that brought Stellar down, but it popped it right back up. Volume again wasn't too crazy on the downside, so that's actually not a bad sign. But I know it's scaring some people because it looked like it was about to break out and now it wants to kind of come in here. Let's look at the hourlies. Look at that. I mean, it's just bouncing right back. So Stellar Lumens, even though it broke this consolidation and this trend, it looks like it wants to turn right back up. So keep an eye on Stellar. I still like Stellar here, but definitely be cautious because this market's getting a little shaky. If Ripple breaks down, I guarantee you Stellar is going to have another leg down. So just kind of keep an eye on these guys. Let's look at one more, Monero. Monero was pretty volatile this week as well. They had A lot of rumors going on, a big pop to the upside, and then they just sold it right back off. And then today's action didn't help Monero. However, Monero is looking like it's holding this moving average for now. If we zoom out a little bit, pretty typical of Monero to have the pop and a little bit of base, pop, a little bit of base. The initial breakout we called was around 25, which was this one here. So if you bought it on the breakout, you're probably okay. You probably didn't like to see it drop from 55 down to 30s, but you're still ahead here. So keep an eye on Monero. As long as it just keeps moving along this channel here, Monero will be okay. So that's going to be it. One thing I do want to note, guys, there's a little enthusiasm in the market right now. There's a lot of froth. Keep an eye on those technicals. Buy on those breakouts. Wait for a base. I know it's easy to get excited and chase those up. I saw a lot of comments on the videos. I saw comments, questions and stuff to me on Twitter. Specifically, hey, is Ripple coming back and Zcash coming back, and some nervousness around that. And guys, you shouldn't have bought Zcash when it popped 200% in an hour. That's all I'm saying, right? So you got to wait. I'm not saying it's not going higher, but those are very high risk entry positions, and you don't want to be chasing those up. You got to, you can't catch them all. Let's be real. I mean, they pop, they go up. Some of them are quick and they come back down. Other ones hold. You can't get them all. Be patient, wait. There's always opportunities. There's always new setups. I'm going to try to keep you guys alert and watching those setups happen. So just stay posted. Keep an eye on this market, guys. I'll keep you guys in tune with what's going on. If we see any more developments, I'll definitely let you know. One last thing. Let's do a little bit of a contest. So $100 billion market cap. When do you think we will get to $100 billion market cap? So here are the rules. It cannot be past this year, so it has to be in 2017. You can't say never. Well, you can say never, but you're not going to be in the contest because we can't wait till forever to see if it never does. So has to be this year. Pick a date. Has to be a specific date on the calendar. So, June 10th, July 15th, etc. Pick a date, and whoever nails it, I'm going to send you one LITECOIN. Hopefully by that point, LITECOIN's not worth like hundreds of dollars, right? But I'm going to still send you a LITECOIN. So whoever gets that contest, post it in the notes. If multiple people pick a date, I'm going to go with the first person that posted the date. I'm going to also post my date on the comments, so I'll be out there with you guys throwing my prediction out. So when will we see 100 billion? If you don't think we'll see 100 billion, or you don't think we'll see it this year, post that too. Let me see what you guys think. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate all the subscribers, and most definitely I got some donations again. Guys, thank you so much for the support and the encouragement. This really helps me, keeps me motivated to keep these videos going. And until next time, take care.